Seth helped reignite a guys group, kind of men of a working age fellowship group, right? Although in reality we span, as Bruce is here who attends frequently, we span all ages, ancient to young, but our fellowship group, really I thought about Habitat as a way, I didn't know necessarily evolve into a long-standing outreach relationship, but just as a way for us to do a service project together as guys, right? And Habitat is shovel-ready projects. You just have to show up and they tell you what to do, right? You just have to have closed-toed shoes on. It's pretty much their only requirement. As a way to do that, and then as I've become more involved in arranging those, which we did a couple of them this last year, working with Kristi and with the support of outreach, where we're providing some level of financial contributions to Habitat as well. We've thrown about all these different ways they try to engage churches, short of sponsoring and being responsible for an entire home, right? So certainly the building process is still a big part of what they do. I do know Habitat, I think 2 years ago they did something like 32 homes. Last year they did 36. They're building 40 homes this year. So they are one of the largest Habitat for Humanity organizations in the country with that number of homes they build. It may even be the largest. I don't know that for a fact, but 40 is quite a lot. So those build events are very important to them, getting volunteers out to help. They have a group of folks who work for Habitat as project managers and have construction backgrounds, and then they contract for certain things like plumbing and other things they have to contract for. And then they have a large group of regular volunteers. They call their habituals, is their name for them, right? And they volunteer wherever needed. But around that, they plan with both their corporate sponsors, faith sponsors, and anybody else who's interested, organize days where you can come build on a home, right? And it's sort of, one commitment to a Saturday or a Friday or a Thursday, whenever they're building, for up to about 10 folks to come and do a task that day. And that's still a real important part of what they do. The faith partnerships work a little differently now. It's not just one church sponsoring a home or anything like that, but they have, I think, kind of basically every year they have 3 faith-based homes being built. One is sponsored by the Catholic Church. The diocese here is large enough and has enough support. I think they sponsor their own home. One other denomination, I think, might be Presbyterians, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure, have a home. And then there's an interfaith home, and we're part of that group as well. And so our financial contributions go to support the building of that home, along with, there's Trinity in Wauwatosa, I think. Trinity's in that group, a few Lutheran churches, and there's weekly conference calls you can join to learn about what's going on. Periodically, and I need to do a better job communicating this year, periodically we get emails about opportunities to go work on that specific home, right? And it's first come, first serve, and you don't have to have a big group. The other thing we did were the planned, organized build days where it was just a group of Christ Church parishioners working on a home. In both cases, that wasn't the interfaith home that day because they didn't have it was just where it was in construction in the stage. They kind of needed this elsewhere. So one Sunday or Saturday in June when it hit 100 degrees. It was almost the South Carolina weather we had, actually. A group of us here, and you can pass these pictures around if you haven't seen them on the wall. We went and put up siding around a home in the Harambe neighborhood. I don't remember that was Palmer. I think it was on Palmer, actually. And the neat thing about that house that we learned while we were building, because they come in and they talk to you, like Kristi or someone else who works with Kristi will come and meet the group and talk to you a little bit about what's going on. That house is part of a program they have with MPS, Milwaukee Public Schools, where they're building homes that then are given to, given with an interest-free mortgage, right, to new school teachers. So young, so this is going to go to a 24, 25-year-old brand new school teacher at MPS with the idea it encourages them to live in the district in the area where they're going to teach and help bring that kind of stability and familiarity to the community, right? And then the other home we built was on the near west side, and I don't remember exactly, it wasn't part of that program, but it was one of the other homes they had built. So those were both special things. The second event we did was in September, and it was actually installing the subflooring on what was going to be a 2-story home. So they build, either 1-story or 2-story homes with full basements. So this is for a larger family, right? And so fortunately, our wives didn't see the pictures of what it was when we started, because it was just a bunch of rafters up above, and we had to kind of get up there and balance ourselves on rafters until we got enough plywood down to actually then be able to walk safely, right? And so, but we did build, as soon as we could, though, we built a safety railing around that. So that was, in fact, our project manager said we need to do that before his boss showed up, because absolutely that's the first requirement, is you get the safety barrier up. So they do a good job keeping folks safe. But that's all the build side of things that we've been able to do. The other ways that parishes or other groups can engage and support the mission is through donating items to what are called welcome home baskets. So we did one of those drives last May, June, you may remember, where it's really essential items for a new homeowner, everything from paper towels and dishcloths to soap to laundry detergent to all manner of items like that. A laundry basket, right? So when they move in, they kind of have that, a starter kit as it was to outfit the home. So we did that for 2 homeowners this year. We did 2 gift baskets this year. And then things like today, decorating the 2x4s, right? That's an activity Kristi presented to me last summer. We're talking about, well, what else can we do? How do we engage the youth? And I talked to Julie and Bailey about it. They were immediately excited about doing something like that. Because you do have to be 16 years old to volunteer on a job, on a build site, so you have to be at least 16. So there's not a lot of ways for really young kids to get directly involved other than doing things like that and learning a little bit about the mission. And Julie and Bailey did a nice job in Sunday school this morning talking about housing and what it means to have a home, and asked the kids, like, what's your favorite home? What's the favorite room in your house, right? And kind of related that feeling to kind of what these beams will end up creating for a family down the road, which is really great. So and then the kids had fun doing it. Their hands are a little messy, so apologies if any of you have children that were there and need to go wash their hands. But and we didn't hurt anybody either. No one lost got whacked in the eye taking them in, which was probably my biggest concern this morning. So there's that. Habitat also has something called the Restore. Folks heard of the Restore, right? That's a place where you can donate new or gently used building materials and other household items that then folks can come and purchase. Some of those make their way into the homes that people are going to occupy, but also I think it's a store. It's like Goodwill. It's a thrift store of sorts that anyone can shop at for items, and then that helps raise money for Habitat. And the opportunities there are for folks 14 and older. Still, you can't be too terribly young. 14 and older can go in and volunteer either to sort items, greet shoppers, work the register, that sort of thing. And that's something I've also talked to Julie about doing maybe this year, Julie or Bailey, with the high school youth, if that's something they'd like to do. But so a lot of ways to kind of engage and make this more a full parish kind of activity, and not simply something for a few guys who want to go bang hammers on a Saturday together, right? Although we will do that again this year, so yeah. So that's kind of all I had a little bit. Is there any other questions about the organization or what we do? Yes? Sure. Yeah, that's a good, yeah. I don't know all about it. I know a little bit about it. I've learned about it. So I'll tell you kind of what I know, and I'll try to make sure when I'm assuming something, I'll say what I'm assuming. But yeah, no, they do have a lot of large corporate donors. I mean, I think they're one of the largest if you look at the list of nonprofits, I think they're in the top 10 in terms of donations received. So they do, I think, 60 million, that number's in my head for some reason, maybe 30 million somewhere. But it's a sizable organization and nonprofit. Obviously, a lot of it comes from corporate giving. I think they get other grants as well. But a lot of corporate giving. Churches give, anywhere from donating $25,000 to $30,000 to sponsor a house, to we do a tenth of that maybe, right? Small donations to be part of an organization, right, or part of an activity. So really, they'll take donations in any amount, but a lot of it does come through corporate partners who use it as a way to drive volunteer activity and community engagement with their employees. So many of their sponsored homes are companies around town that are sponsoring them. And then they get their choice of build dates for those things. So on the financial side for the homeowner, and I learned a little bit about this from Habitat, but also one of the other things I've done in the past, although I'm not able to do it this year, is I do volunteer tax assistance down in the Riverworks neighborhood occasionally. And a number of Habitat homeowners have come through to have their taxes done, and they present their property tax certificate, so they get a deduction for the property taxes, right? And I go, well, what about the interest, right? Don't you have a mortgage statement interest? Should we look at deducting your interest payment? And they go, oh, I don't pay interest. I have a Habitat home. It's like, wow, right, that's great. So really the financial side of things are, there is an income requirement to be a Habitat homeowner, because you do have to be able to afford the property taxes every year, as well as pay off an interest-free first mortgage over 30 years, right? So my understanding is that generally cuts people's monthly payment, what had been a monthly rent payment, in half to become just a principal payment on a 30-year mortgage, right? So it's about making home ownership accessible to a larger population. It's not free by any means, and then there's also, as I've come to learn, and what the homeowner sees then is just that monthly principal payment, right? And if they stay in the home, pay that off over whatever period of time, then they own the house free and clear, right? There is a second mortgage on the home. So Habitat's so banks are financing this, so there are actual interest costs on these homes. Habitat is, through its contributions and the money it raises, not only builds the home, it pays the interest on the first mortgage, right? The second mortgage is a little bit of a different story, but again, since these, mortgage, anyway, most people, if they're not paying for, have 100% financed a home and aren't paying for insurance, you have a second mortgage, right? And that's kind of the situation that exists with the Habitat homes. That is, again, subsidized. It's not, it is forgiven over time. So if you stay in the house 10 or 20, I think it's at least 10 years, maybe close, maybe 15 here in Milwaukee, that second mortgage is completely forgiven, right? But if you do leave the home after 5 years, there may be some money owed by the homeowner on that second mortgage, which I've heard stories that sometimes homeowners aren't aware of that and they're surprised by it when that happens, which I know Habitat tries to educate people as best they can about that. But hopefully, at that point, these aren't expensive homes, and the equity in the home would cover that, so no one's paying out of pocket. But my understanding is the reason they do it that way is this isn't just about, low-cost housing today. It's really about stabilizing neighborhoods, right? So if you look at where they're building homes in town, it is the Near West neighborhood, it is Harambe and that area there, where they work very closely with the city of Milwaukee to identify lots, and oftentimes groups of lots. So you'll see around town, there'll be 3 or 4 Habitat homes, 5 or 6 even, built in a little community together. The city identifies areas where they have vacant lots, foreclosed on lots, places that aren't viable as housing anymore, and they sell those to Habitat for $1. So the city's probably one of their biggest, right, contributors in that sense, is they get the home for $1, and then Habitat has to remove the structure, prepare it for a new building, and then come in. So it's about stabilizing communities as well, and home ownership, as I think most people know, is a big factor in whether communities are stable, right? So you turned what could be, a city block or half a city block from what was sort of run down, poorly managed rental properties, or properties that have become, occupied by, transient populations or whatever, and you want to stabilize that by having long-term homeowners in these homes in new, safe housing, right? There are basements. So actually, every house has a full basement. Yeah. I surprised me, but yeah, they do put a basement. So even this little first floor house I passed around had a basement underneath it. So, which is, yeah. I was surprised when I learned that, but they said no, every house in Milwaukee they built has a basement. So it's not occupiable. It's not got a egress, right? But you can't have a bedroom down there. But, they have a home repairs program, a critical repairs program as well. I don't know as much about that, but on their website they talk about it a little bit. So they do have a program where it's critical repairs, but I don't think that they remodel a home necessarily and then sell it as a Habitat home. I think that's a brand new home. And they have very standard models, right? I mean, they have you go to these communities where you see 4 or 5 of them being built. They, kind of mirror images of each other, but they're generally a standard build where they have very standard requirements and dimensions, and the project managers know how to build them so they can do 40 relatively quickly, right, and consistently. And then, they know exactly what material they need for each house, and they can work with their suppliers to get the right stuff. And, and if something doesn't get used at one home, guess what? It can just go right next door, and it's the same thing. So they don't. So yeah. Yes. Yeah, I don't know about the monitoring. I do know, there's an income requirement, there's an application process, there's an educational process, there's both related to financial aspects of home ownership, and then I think is maintenance and caretaking as well. So they do get that education. They also participate, maybe it's not necessarily on their own home they're building, but part of their agreement with Habitat to become a homeowner is, I think, is it 600 hours? It's some relatively large number of hours of service back to Habitat working on build sites. So at both of, not at the first one, the second home we were on, there were a couple of women there who were Habitat homeowners who came as part of their commitment to spend 4 hours on a Saturday helping somebody else out doing whatever other jobs. They didn't make them get up on the roof with the guys, but they did something else. So yeah, they definitely have that expectation. Yes.
Outreach works to try and engage as many people in the transition with places that we support.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the criteria that we're really working on.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Team is donating a little over $300 to the Habitat landscaping project.
That's great. Yep. I meant to mention that. Right.
That you worked on, and that's too big of a problem.
Yeah.
So we are doing it, I forget if it's the beginning of June.
Okay.
And there'll be a donation exchange if we have too many hostels or whatever, you can turn them down, and they're using.
That's right. They do that. They do a landscaping donation in June. Yeah. Good. Oh, great. Wonderful. Yeah. So, great. Another way to do it. And yeah, they do have pretty complicated logistics. So you'd kind of like to know, like even our home baskets, right? You'd like to know, well, who's it going to? It's like, well, we're not sure yet. It depends on when it closes and who that's actually going to be. They don't necessarily, they start 40 homes without knowing who all the homeowners are going to be, right? Because it takes 9 months to a year to build a house. And so, mm-hmm. Yes, they're I'd say I've been very impressed with that aspect. Scheduling with them for build days has been easy, given the complexity of what they do with the weather you have to deal with here in this area. And, so only about 2 months out, 6 weeks to 8 weeks out, they're planning their build activities, right? So we think on this Saturday, in March, they'll be able to say, in May, we're going to be doing, siding on this house in January, or framing on this house on Thursday. You kind of get those opportunities. So you've kind of got to be ready to sign up about 6 or 8 weeks ahead and commit to a date and then recruit volunteers, because they try to lock it in, and things can always shift with weather and progress and everything else. That's a great question. I don't know as much about that as I'd like. I think the Restore plays a part in that, in donated furniture items. I don't know if they have a program though that completely furnishes the home or not. Kristi would have been able to answer that, I'm sure. Yeah, we've only worked on sort of exterior type, siding and the roofing part of it. So we've didn't volunteer at a time when they were doing painting or indoor work. But,
Do they still do the build weeks? But they used to do a really intense week where they had a lot of groups. They don't do that anymore.
not that I,
We did lunches. And when did you chair that? Lunches for Habitat Build Week? No? Okay. I remember we did like
yeah,
100 lunches
yeah.
for 2 days.
So they have,
Yeah. Well, St. Christopher's and Christchurch, once upon a time, sponsored a house together. And I want to say it was $60,000
Could have
for
been.
the church, and I think we each did it over 2 or 3 years. It was
right,
awesome.
yeah.
And a lot of sandwiches.
So I think that, I'll say it without Kristi being here to say this, my impression is with building 40 homes now, every week is build week, right? And so they have every week constant activity at a group of the houses. And so I don't know, I haven't heard of certainly what I've seen from not a specific, hey, here's a build week, we're all doing it. It's what I get are every month probably an email that says, here are the upcoming opportunities, first come, first serve on the interfaith house, which I need to find a way to email out to more broadly, some of our outreach communication stuff. That's my commitment for this year. So other people anyone who just wants to sign up, and you could be with some Lutherans or whatever, be okay.
Provide lunch on the days you work?
No, you do arrange your own lunch, and so we've had it door dashed to us. Actually, the really hot day, we got our job done before lunch, so we quit early, which they were happy to do because Saturday is their last day of the week working. They take Sunday and Monday off, and so they were happy to knock off early when it was so hot. But that is actually something I talked to Julie about for the middle school youth potentially, right? If they wanted to get involved, they could pack lunches and bring them to whoever's working one day on one of our arranged build days, right? But otherwise, you generally pack your own lunch. And when we've gone, the second day we did it and bought lunch. We bought lunch for the folks that were there from Habitat. Usually they have 1 or 2 people on site helping you. That's the great thing about it is you really don't have to know how to use any tools or have any tools. You can bring your own if you'd like, but they have everything, equipment, instructions, and they keep it safe, so, as well. So, that was nice. Yeah. No, that's just what we did this year based on the build, the months we were built. We did a day in June and a day in September, and just the build opportunities they had, the Saturdays we wanted to do it, were all outdoor work. So, does that make sense? We could, we could certainly ask about an indoor project if there was painting or some other work, that drywall, painting, other work that they needed volunteers to do inside. We could look for that as well. We just didn't have the days we were working. The houses they had available for us to work on were outdoor work. So, yeah.
If when people leave, you want to walk through the mission room, there's a photograph on the wall of Sandy Miller in her hard hat.
All right.
Cameras away.
There we go.
I haven't looked lately. I don't know if there are other Habitat pictures in there or not.
Volunteer program now seems to be a lot different than it used to be. I mean, we volunteered and we worked in the house from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm,
We
mm-hmm.
ended up by doing food and
Yeah, yeah.
we went on a regular basis, like 1 or 2 Saturdays.
Yeah, yeah, and that, if you are a big corporate sponsor, like Johnson Controls, let's pretend, who sponsors a home and its employees, they get first choice at every Saturday, let's say, on that house, right? When we volunteer, well, so 2 things. One, as the interface house, there are 20 or 30 parishes that have supported that house, right? And so we kind of get first come, first serve opportunities throughout the year to go work on that specific house. But we're not required, we're not responsible for getting it all done. They do. And they do. They have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday are the options. just working, again, this is how we did it last year, just with the guys group working on it. Saturday was the most viable day to go spend a day working for us. So we look at Saturdays. We could look at other, and some of the, but you're right, some of these other opportunities are during the week. But the big corporate sponsored homes where it's Johnson Controls, for example, engaging all of their employees in doing, or Northwestern Mutual or whoever, doing a single home, they will have the opportunity to take as many days as they would like, right? Days they don't take become days where anybody can form a group of volunteers. So the 2 houses we worked on, right, this summer, there was no other group of volunteers signed up for that day, so they offered us filling in, basically, as a whole team, right? So, I think it's just really, complicated because, there's the 40 homes they're doing this year, they certainly haven't finished all 36 from last year and finished and have everybody move in because it takes, a year or more sometimes. Depends on the house, how long it takes them to build. So, but yeah, I think it's different than, and it's a much bigger operation now. So you do have to have a little bit of flexibility around when you're available and take what's available, right? But we were able to do that a couple of times this year. I'd like to do, I was actually asked after talking about this over the summer how we'd done the guys' build day in June. I think someone asked Seth about, well, what about a Women's Day, right? I said, yeah, that's great. Just someone has to organize, someone has to say they want to do it, right? And organize it. So we do it thematically, or we could just, I think this year, if we just try to pick far enough ahead 3 Saturdays and just open it up to anybody in the parish who wants to come do it that day, right? Not just be a guy's thing, right? So I will say, and this may be different from years ago, because I remember this from when I did it as a youth, you'd have 30 people from the parish there, right? Some working, some not, some chatting it up, right? That sort of thing. They actually, for safety and efficiency reasons, generally limit the day to 10 volunteers. Depends on the task. Could be as few as 6, as many as 10, which they found is a way to keep it safe, a way for the project manager can monitor everything, and efficient so that the task for that day gets done and doesn't have to be reworked. I think they have had experiences where people with all the best intentions come out and do something, and then they find they were having to rework it because the work wasn't watched closely enough, right? So they're trying to balance all of these things because these are meant to be good, quality-built homes, and it'll last a long time, and so they do it the best. But, they were happy with the work we did anyway. Yeah. So I think it is a bit different from how it used to be in terms of everything is. But now they have Restore, they have, the Welcome Home baskets, the gardening piece. There's a lot of ways they try to engage people in the mission. So.
Well, this is sort of preaching to the choir, but, one of the things that the outreach committee thinks about and talks about a lot is what is the best way to engage people. In general, people are less likely to say, I will do this 2 months from now, no matter what, from 9 to 3, or whatever the activity may be. I think all of us, and certainly the younger families even more so, have to live with the mindset of, I would love to and I will, unless unless this has come up, or that has come up, or somebody's sick, or there's a game scheduled. So it's, I think, a very different scheduling mindset now. And I think what outreach has to figure out is the best way to communicate opportunities to people.
Mm-hmm.
The good news at Christchurch is that the broadcast is jammed with fabulous information. There's all kinds of great stuff. So what is it that makes people read something all the way through? And of course, everybody's different. So if anybody has any thoughts, not so much for here, but privately, any outreach member, we'd be really interested in your thoughts of how you would like to be engaged, because I don't think our challenge is lack of opportunities.
Mm-mm.
It's honing them, organizing them, and communicating.
Yep.
It's a nice problem to have, but it is different than just 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
I would just like to know how you can communicate things that are lighter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to get up on a ladder.
Right. Right.
Doing a lot of work in it. But I can certainly help another.
Sure, sure. Right. And their option, I mean, yeah, they're definitely, they were very clear, like, what tasks involve ladders. And so both of our tasks involved ladders this year, and so everybody had to be comfortable with being on a ladder, right? You also had to be comfortable smashing your thumb with a hammer, which I did. I did more than once. Yeah, but yeah, so if that's good, I mean, and you're right. I mean, I think this year if we think about, is there an indoor painting type task or finishing or something like that that would be easy, have more broader participation, we could certainly look at a day like that. And for me, it's just kind of saying, okay, we're going to try to do two again this year, try to do 3, and work with Habitat to pick the months. It's just, and they're okay. They're actually really flexible too. They're like, we need you to have 10 volunteers for this task, right? If a week ahead you have to confirm, and if you don't have 10, that's fine. 6 can come, and they'll get 4 of their habituals to show up and help out, right? So they kind of understand some of the challenges I think, particularly churches may have sometimes in getting everybody aligned in there at a certain time. So, yeah. Anything else? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's great. And we'll have Kristi back here talk more about it and correct everything I said later in the year. So, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.